all 11 communities I visited, these were the top 3 business ones to generate more revenue and business growth and fill empty buildings. So let's begin by looking at some small ideas, some ways to start small, tiny businesses that do not require a huge investment. So you can lower the barrier to entry for your entrepreneurs, let them test their ideas out and see if they work, and create excitement around possible new businesses. The Pueblo of Zuni, New Mexico, population 6,000, had lots of local people making traditional crafts and arts, but very few usable commercial buildings. To support their native artists and growing their businesses, they created an outdoor market area in an empty lot and started a series of arts and crafts market events. Now, the artists reach more customers together at these temporary events than they would have each on their own. And this is really easy to start in any town. Take an empty lot, pick a weekend, and have your local crafters, artists, and entrepreneurs set up pop-up booths selling everything handmade, from art to lipstick to even tamales. You can try something a bit different. This is the Chickasaw Cultural Center in Oklahoma, where my business partner Becky lives. Now they have a small store in this cultural center. These are locally grown products that are for sale. I'm guessing you probably have someone local that makes really good stuff, but they don't really want to start a new business in a new brick and mortar building. How could you partner with them? What could you sell in your historical buildings? Walk into any existing retail business and ask if they'll dedicate one wall to a new local business. This is a coffee shop in Minnesota, and they asked a local photographer who worked from their home to display their work on an empty wall. Now, many small town photographers have their offices in their homes, and they don't have a physical space to show off their work. This is a great idea. In Goffstown, New Hampshire, local artists have joined together to put art on the walls in empty buildings. I definitely want you to showcase some of your businesses too. Michelle Robos from Ohio helped put together a business showcase, and it was specifically for home-based and rural outside of town businesses that were unknown to most people in town. And they just held it in an empty building downtown. Michelle said it resulted in the creation of at least 2 new businesses in town. The seed of the concept was a local business owner needed a custom hose for a piece of equipment, and he had to drive 17 miles to the closest city to find it, until he found out that a small business out in the country just 2 miles away could make them cheaper, and he had no idea they were there. This is one of my favorites, a business resource night. Now, Cassandra Boniface, and she's with the Township of Stirling Rawdon in Ontario. They had a business resource night for business owners or those just thinking about owning a business. And Cassandra said, I've gathered over a dozen resources covering everything from funding, business planning, accounting, website creation, logo design, employee assistance. She goes on forever about this. And they just had an informal networking event. Participants visited each other in a much more relaxed environment. So instead of boring presentations, they set up casual booths with comfy chairs. Now, we did that in my county along with the University of Northern Iowa, and we decided we wanted more entrepreneurs. So we held an informal gathering called EntreBash, and this picture that you're looking at is from that. Round tables were set up so you could visit whoever you needed to visit with, a CPA, a lawyer, social media expert, a marketer. This young couple was meeting with the Small Business Development Center, and they've since started their own greenhouse business here in town. How many of your potential entrepreneurs don't have a usable garage of their own, or don't own a house, or can't afford to just get started? Twisp, Washington, 1,500 people. They have a business called Twisp Works. Say that 3 times. It's a project that converted a former forest ranger station into spaces for local businesses. And this is the old open front equipment shed. They converted it into small shop spaces by adding fronts. And these are rented to local craft entrepreneurs, including a blacksmith and a conservation birdhouse maker. In my town of Webster City, there's 8,000 of us, and I'm in Iowa. We had a building owner that had several empty buildings downtown, and I approached them with the incubator project idea. So I asked them to put a couple of their buildings in this program, offering 3 months free rent, the first 3 months free rent, and reduce rent the rest of the year. The chamber agreed to help the businesses that went into those buildings with marketing. And the SBDC came in to help the business with creating a valuable business plan as they were building their business. Now, the benefits to the owner, at least their utilities were being paid by someone else. Every building needs love, and this provided that. The business could leave at any time. Remember, this is a way to test out your business ideas, or they could stay as long as they wanted. Now, did it work? Yes, it did. We had this amazing Italian restaurant, and they lasted a year. They'd still be there if the husband hadn't been offered a job 3 times his normal salary in another state. Family always comes first, and that's kind of in the code of ethics in our town. No worries though. The Mexican grocery store downtown wanted to open a restaurant, but they were saving to buy a commercial hood, and those things are expensive. In the meantime, they took advantage of the incubator program for 1 year, and they have now since opened their own restaurant. And the last business to be there was a new and used store with an artist who collected really unique things. She grew so much she moved to the nearby big city of about 20,000 people. Now, Tionesta, Pennsylvania, has a population of 500 people. They are literally surrounded by mountains and a river. And this empty lot used to have a building that burned down, and it sat empty for 10 years, while the economic development people were waiting for one big business to swoop in and fill it up and save the town. Then a guy had an idea to put in garden sheds and give them false 1800 fronts to match the other buildings in town. Now, people could rent these buildings out and have a mini store. So that's what they did. And this is exactly what it looks like. Becky and I were out there for another project for the county, and we got the opportunity to visit with the store owners. People now come to Tionesta to shop at this market village. There's a doll dressmaker, second bakery. They have a location in another town. A winery out of town comes in and sells wine. There's a barbecue joint. There's a guy that makes flies for fishermen, and in the wintertime, and then in the summer, he sells them in one of these locations. It's a brilliant idea and certainly affordable for a community to take on. So let's talk about the empty buildings. Why do the owners keep them empty? Well, first of all, not all of them do. Some owners use it for storage, or it might look like an episode of Hoarders. Or often the owner lives out of town and doesn't really care. Or the owner likes it empty for a tax write-off. And sometimes the owner had good intentions, but just ran out of money. So what can you do about these kind of challenges? Centerville, South Dakota, population 900, adopted a local vacant building ordinance that makes it less desirable to use empty spaces for cheap storage. Now, fees are charged for rundown, dilapidated properties to discourage absent property owners from holding onto properties that could be turned into businesses. They don't have a local code enforcement officer. They actually 1099 someone from a larger town who nobody knows. Fayetteville, North Carolina, a city with 200,000 people, targeted their vacant commercial properties in their downtown, and they started requiring inspection by the fire department every 6 months. Now, originally, they proposed a $1,000 registration fee, which would have been waived for owners actively listing their properties at or near fair market prices. And the real estate agents group opposed that. So be sure before you do something like this that you do talk to your realtors before you get started. Callender, Iowa, and Stanhope, Iowa, both with a population of around 365, have changed their city codes and added a property maintenance code for both the exterior and interior of the buildings. I like it because it really sets forth a detailed plan of action, a fine structure, and no nonsense, do this or we will take your building from you attitude. This is in Tucson, and it was a gas station before, and now it's a restaurant. So by establishing adaptive reuse programs and providing modest incentives that reduce barriers to retrofitting historic buildings, cities can spur the recovery of entire neighborhoods and facilitate the growth of their local businesses. Now, added benefits include maintaining a diverse commercial building stock and reducing development pressure in undeveloped areas. Adaptive reuse of existing historic commercial buildings can also help your cities create a distinct identity and character, which in turn can both strengthen a sense of community and attract new investment. Now, we believe in starting small and working together. These next few ideas tell you how to do that. Before you invest a ton of money on equipment, try this idea. The Caslow Food Hub Tool Library in the basement of St. Andrews Hall in Caslow, British Columbia, offers a wide variety of culinary tools to help with food self-sufficiency in the garden and the kitchen. You can check out the tools for up to 1 week, and rates are about $5 to $10. Now, if you take a moment, look at localtools.org, LOCALTOOLS.org. You can register your tool library and find others in your area at that site. Thanks to the wives of a group of retired farmers who moved into town of Akron, Iowa, population 1,500, the Old Geezers Club was born. They named themselves. These farmers had woodworking tools cluttering up their garages, and the wives told them to find someplace else for all that equipment. Now, they were already having coffee together every morning from 6 to 9 in an old empty hospital. So they moved their tools into the dry basement of that building. It's a great place to try out the equipment on a project without investing a ton of money into a project. They do work with the local shop teacher and help students learn the craft of woodworking. Now, since they've moved into that building, there are several artists, a massage therapist, an alternative health supplier who have also moved into spaces in the building. Great use of an empty building. You could hold co-crafting events like Crafternoons or Maker Days. Now, Crafternoons at the Mentoring Artists for Women's Art feature instruction by North American, Indigenous, and New Canadian artists. The Delta Church in Delta, BC also hosts a young adult Crafternoon. If you look at your libraries, they may already be doing something like this. I like the idea of taking it out for adults to do it. Now, Calgary, Alberta hosts a Maker Fair in May of this year. And you can find more Maker Fairs at Maker Fair. It's MakerFaire.com. So from tech enthusiasts to crafters, scientists to garage tinkerers, at Maker Fair, novices and experts of all ages come together to show what they've made and share what they're learning. Next up, retail. Every community would like more retail, including marketing, partnerships, and of course, more shoppers. Now, marketing, this is an easy thing to do, and many people can participate in this one. You want to remind people there's lots to do, and you can do that with a Pinterest board like this one from Stone's Throw Cafe, and it's called What to Do in Crow's Nest Pass. You can make it a group board. It doesn't cost you any money to promote what you already have, and you'll be surprised at how much you do have. You could even choose to partner with nearby towns and do this regionally. I like that idea a lot. Of course, you want to support your local artists. This is Lady Pompadour and the Girls, and they're from the Crow Reservation in Montana, and they're modeling Rose Williamson's designs at a local event in this picture. Rose is in the middle, and her jewelry, clothing, and beadwork is seen often at pop-ups at events around the state and online. You can do this too, perhaps even add a corner to another retail location and showcase one outfit. I know we have somebody here from the Historical Society. You could actually do this. You could do a show with some of your old clothing that you have. People love to come out and see that. Now, just because you have a business doesn't mean people have to shop there. You still need to create the reasons for people to come into your store and start with the basics. Is it clean? Is it easy to navigate? Is it stocked well? Do you change your windows at least once a month? Is it inviting? Next up is community. And it's entitled that because these ones can be done by everyone and it greatly affect your towns as a whole. So it's signage, attract young families, beautification, cleanup, and new neighbors. Pullman, Washington had a dirty sidewalk problem. Every time it rains, dirt and leaves and stuff just wash out on the streets and onto the sidewalks, and it's pretty messy. They talked about at a meeting about doing another cleanup day, but nobody was real excited about it. Then Willow, a business owner, put up her hand and said, I'll clean up my own sidewalk. And that's exactly what she did. But how do you get from one person cleaning their own sidewalk to a crowd of people cleaning up downtown on an ongoing basis? Well, you have some fun with it. You could take pictures when you clean your own sidewalk, put it up on social media, hashtag it with Clean Your Own Sidewalk Day, and ask everyone to join in. Every time you clean your sidewalk, keep posting it and tagging it. Make a big deal out of how everyone can do their own sidewalk. And soon enough, someone will join you, and hopefully maybe a lot of someone's. It worked in Pullman. Other merchants followed her lead. They all started sweeping their sidewalks on Wednesday. Then the city joined in. They send their street sweeper around Thursday in the early morning hours to pick up all that dirt. Now, I know you've got a few eyesores in your communities. Just go out and fix something broken on an empty building, like a loose board or a dangling wire. It's kind of right up there with washing windows. That's something a group of ninjas could do too. Now, a city council member in Pullman, Washington actually adopted these flower boxes, and she carried water all summer long. And while she was doing it, she had some great conversations with people right there on the sidewalk. I love this picture. I love these lights, and I encourage you to hang street lights or put out solar lights. I saw that Burlington did have lights across their downtown streets, and I didn't get to see them at night, but I only assume they were lovely. There is not a space in the world that can't be made better with some string lights. Put them in pocket parks, on trees, on fences, and over outdoor patios. I'll get the word out yet. This is in downtown Iowa City, Iowa, and it's very inviting. And in the wintertime, imagine instead of those table and chairs, they have Christmas trees out there all lit up. Be very beautiful. All right. Do anything small. We all make our places every day by how we use them. Sitting down on a bench downtown and enjoying the sunshine makes a place. It helps make a place. Driving through downtown at 35 miles an hour without stopping makes it a different kind of place. And you can do anything small. Pull weeds, paint something, spread your art, bring the fun, googly eyes. God, I love googly eyes. Put them on the waste baskets. String lights, do something in public. Go sit on that bench and read a book. Talk to a friend. Eat your lunch at the picnic table with someone. You don't have to know all the answers. You just have to be open to new ideas. Iowa State University studied 99 small towns for a period of over 20 years. In that time, these towns experienced every kind of change. Some lost a manufacturer like we did. Others gained new business. Some lost a local school. Some had big growth in their schools. Some were hit by natural disasters and others were spared. What the researchers concluded was that no matter what happened or didn't happen, the towns that prospered the best were the ones that were open to new ideas and welcomed new people into the decision making. So being open to new ideas requires us to let go of worrying about whether the idea will work. Test it and try it out. Consensus won't come from voting on what most people want or trying to compromise until the majority of people in the room can reluctantly agree. Think about that meeting room in Pullman, Washington, where they had the dirty sidewalks. If they had voted in that room, the majority would have voted for holding another cleanup day, even though it hadn't worked to create lasting change. Consensus emerged from action, the actions people were motivated enough to take. The whole group might not go to the direction you personally would want or the way that you have always done things, but when you plant your flag with your idea, you pick the direction you go. You clean your own sidewalk, and the people who want to do that too will come right along with you. I promise you, it's never going to go back to the way it used to be. You have to start from here and go forward, one small step at a time. What a hot topic, daycare. And you know what? It's a big one all over the United States. Now, I've added this link in at the end of this presentation. I want you to research the Community Innovation and Resilience for Care and Learning Equity. That's a lot. And they call it CIRCLE grants, a community-focused grant program to save families money on childcare, to strengthen the childcare talent pipeline, and help every Colorado child thrive. And you will find that link at the end. While you're at it, look around your community. Many churches have facilities that could be converted into childcare during the week, or maybe even just on Fridays for those towns where the school is closed on that day. Moms could get together and let the kids play while they talk. What are their ideas? And then how can you support them in their ideas? In my county, that's my great nephew, by the way, the Building Families nonprofit has put together funds to help people train to run a daycare, get them trained to run, and then they help them make their residents daycare friendly. It provides income for a family and possible jobs too, not to mention the opportunity for parents to both work. It lowers the barrier to entry, helps them learn how to test to take the daycare licensing program and how to prepare their home to become a daycare. It's a lot of words here, but this is Pierce County, Nebraska, and they use these 3 ideas. There are 7,200 people in the entire county, and I actually like that they have added funding into their economic development plans. And again, this will be on your printout, so you'll get to see it. Oh, let's skip to housing. This is the #1 rural challenge across the United States. With the rising cost of supplies, building houses has become a nightmare. So what can you do about it? In Katanning, Pennsylvania, Andrew Ladislaw actually created a simple system to transform their small town. Now you can watch the video link at the end of this presentation for that. But they go out and they rated the state of all the houses in town by hand. He wrote it down in a notebook, and then they got to work. Their volunteer ninjas worked on the simple things like mowing yards or painting fences, small repairs, the things that could be done without any danger. And they just kept working on things. And, you know, when somebody cleans your house up, your neighbor's going to clean their house up because you don't want to look bad, right? We all know what that's like. You could host a tour of empty buildings. Now, when I went to interview for the chamber job, I counted 14 empty buildings in my town, downtown. I knew if I got the job, I was going to have to help fill those buildings. And yes, I got the job. I also knew we couldn't continue to ignore those buildings. We needed to showcase them in some way. I believe we could fill the buildings, and that right now there were people who wanted to fill them. So I made up the tour of empty buildings. Like I said, I knew we needed to show the buildings off, but we needed to tell their stories and dream about their futures. It would need to be a project filled with lots of people involved in small ways and very transparent. We needed to stop talking about it used to be this way and start talking about the positive ways to fill the buildings going forward. Now, we showcased 12 buildings out of the 14. You can pick up your map at the chamber office and tour the buildings one day between 4 and 7. We had retired chamber champions in each building that were able to tell the story of the building, along with the owner and or the realtor who could answer how many square feet, what's behind that door, those questions. It's a long story when I get talking about the tour, and I'm going to spare you, but we did talk an awful lot about all the buildings, the tour, and all the successes along the way. For me, the end result was nothing short of miraculous. We sold or filled 10 of the 12 buildings in 18 months. Brilliant. So here's another tool for you. This is a free publication that features smart ways to make a home comfortable, safe, and a great fit for us older adults and really people of all ages. It's actually one way to start the conversation with your older relatives who might be ready to move to a smaller place and just don't know how to tell you. ADUs are accessory dwelling units. You may have heard that, and they're actually a great way to expand housing options for people of all ages. Again, there's a link at the end, but just imagine that little empty space for a tiny house where your mother-in-law can live in your backyard. Our housing markets are low, and that's not necessarily a bad thing, but what can we do to create more affordable housing? Well, what about a tiny house community? Now, this house you're looking at is made in York, Nebraska by Champion Home Builders. And of course, it's also movable, but they happily will set it on a cement slab as well. If you go to Spur, Texas, they have an entire tiny house community built around a central area, and it's wonderful. So let's talk about building just a little bit. Use private enterprise to build. Did you know schools are building houses and selling at cost? You can build apartment buildings and multifamily buildings instead of just single home all the time. And as a city, you could be your own developer. I do want you to think about alternative housing, tiny houses, manufactured homes, shipping containers, train cars. Check into the federal opportunity zones, and I believe Candace can help you with that task. Or even better, come together as a region, and your chance of getting developers in to build houses will be a lot greater. You could try incentives. Vermont pays $5,000 per family to move there to work remote. Now, over 50% of their people are over the age of 55. So this really is a smart move on their part. Another town in Kansas is doing the same thing. Akron, Iowa, they sell lots for $500, and you have to build within 1 year, or they take the lot back and no refund, and they're all sold. Okay, let's go into infrastructure. You said you needed wells, crosswalks, dirt infill, and a few other things. Well, I can talk about crosswalks right now, and I recommend that you all come together regionally and have a conversation on what might be possible for infrastructure. Work with Candace on this, and invite the states in too. Talk to your legislators and your elected officials. Have them come to the meeting as well. Let's go to crosswalks though. Paint them. Hamilton, Ontario in Canada started in 2018 with 3 painted crosswalks. It took them 2 years, and along the way they wrote an 8-page guideline. So now they can follow the guideline as they go along. Alva, Oklahoma did this one for the big homecoming celebration. And Enid, Oklahoma is commissioning professional artwork for theirs. This is in Carlisle, Iowa, where there's a well-used regional trail that ends about 1/3 of a mile from downtown. Well, they wanted to encourage those trail users to continue past the end of the trail and visit downtown. The Carlisle Hometown Pride Group, a bunch of ninja volunteers, teamed up with the Chamber of Commerce to have an artist paint the end of the trail and the sidewalk leading to downtown with these colorful designs to create this art path that visitors can follow downtown. Have some fun. Have a day where you invite everyone to come out and chalk up your sidewalks. Give prizes for all kinds of things, like the best, the funniest, the most colorful, the funkiest, the oldest, the youngest. You get the idea. And make sure adults and kids both participate. Next up is medical. Healthcare in rural America is a crapshoot at best. Our hospitals are closing, large concerns are taking over, and you have to travel long distances for care. Well, what can you do? I can't solve these medical issues for you, but you can, all of you, and it will take all of you. Get together a crowd of people who care about these issues. Meet for a meal or a beer or go to somebody's house. Begin the conversation on how to get started. What small things can you try out? Make a big noise about it. Let folks know you're discussing how to keep and bring medical care to your 4 counties. And don't make it a gripe session. Give it 5 minutes at the beginning, but move into solutions after that. You could take some preventative measures. Think about small ways you could try these things out. Are there alternative methods you could look at, like exercise in the park, Tai Chi, Reiki, massage? Preventative care is always good. This image is an outdoor workout area in my town for adults. You could all do this. Let's go on to recreation. Most of you want more trails, parks, and updated recreation opportunities. Golf, hunting, fishing, pickleball, public art, rec centers, we're all on your list too. So begin by starting with what you have. You want more people to use the things you already have in your community. A great way to draw more people in is to remind them what assets and opportunities are available. People forget that they can fish for free at the public park, or that the library checks out tools, or that you can use the lodge building to hold events and feed people. You have many assets that are often forgotten about. Well, go make a list of them. Share them on your social media platforms. Put them on your website. Remind folks of some of the good things you have, and encourage them to add items that you've missed. Make a hashtag so people can post anytime they take advantage of something. Reach out to people outside your usual group. Message businesses that serve different ethnic groups, churches, nonprofits too. Look for recreation groups like the Runners Club or the Kayakers. They're going to know more assets and opportunities that you don't know. And they'll know people you don't know and can help increase your reach. Make your trails pretty. It's amazing what paint can do for a trail. It doesn't have to be a trail. It can be a section of the sidewalk too. Now, this has nothing to do with recreation, but I thought it was pretty and I should share it with you. It's in my town. The top part of this building is empty and needs lots and lots of work. The old windows were boarded up and you can imagine they looked horrible. The Community Vitality Director found a program involving students at the University of Iowa, and they created this idea. They simply took large pieces of wood and had a design painted on them, just like paint by numbers. Then they were painted by citizen volunteers, and these images are important people and things in my town. So what they did, they drew the design, they took the boards out to the fairgrounds for a couple of weeks, and you could go out there for 5 minutes or 5 hours. Anybody could go over and help paint. This was a great way to involve many people who could take small but meaningful steps. And it also is creating public art that everybody had something to do with. Make it attractive. You've seen plenty of chain link fences. Grow flowers or vines that crawl up on the fence, or work just a little on that trail or park. It's part of your home. You want it to look nice. Here's another fun one. Set up selfie stations. This is such a simple solution to set up along the trails or in the parks. And if you can't get permission to do it permanently, then paint them on fabric or cardboard or anything you can find and bring them out for special occasions. Let's go to restaurants. And food trucks are a great way to get people out to eat. Start by compiling a list of food trucks within 30 miles of your location. And I think you'll be surprised how many there are. And then the next event, celebration, or just because day, you have a plan on having a food truck or two there. Give it a shot. Is there a place you can make a food truck park in? Add some picnic tables and maybe have Food Truck Friday. you might want to integrate it into your farmer's market. And for those of you that are afraid it's going to take away business from your restaurants, I think you'll be surprised. Statistics show that the restaurants are actually busier. People come out for the event, for the gathering, and not everybody wants to eat at a food truck. They're happy to go sit at the restaurant and enjoy that while they're downtown. Churches, how many commercial kitchens do you have in your town? Well, many churches have one, and they are sadly underused. Put on your thinking cap and devise some ways to better utilize those spaces. Now, in my town, one of the churches calls the businesses on Thursday to find out how many breakfast burritos do they want in their office for Friday morning. Then they deliver them. They make them at the church. These things are as big as your head. It's a new thing in town, different from a sit-down restaurant, and the food is great. This is a great way to test out your idea, raise some money for your church, and serve your community in a new way. Tourism is up next, and it's a broad topic. Several of you mentioned hotels, and in the notes at the end, I suggest you reach out to Cobblestone Hotel and go to EADS, am I saying that right? EADS, which isn't too far from you. They have one. Just plan a visit and see what it is they had to do to get a Cobblestone Hotel. I know that organization works with small towns and regions to find ways to bring one of their boutique hotels to your small towns. Getting traffic off the highway is important too. So let's take a look at a few things you can do in town that will make people talk. It also makes people want to drive through and see what cool things you're doing. Direct people to the good stuff in your town. Put up some directional signs to all kinds of things, parks, murals, other art, downtown businesses. And you can use Coroplast, those things people running for office have their signage on. You could try sheet metal, recycle old signs from the street department and paint them. You can even paint on cardboard for some fun temporary signs. This one is actually in Concrete, Washington, population 700. Want people to use your hashtags? Well, post them. I visited Paulding, Ohio, and me and this young man, a member of the community, decided we were going to go out and cover up an old sign for a business that was no longer there on an empty building that was owned by a woman that lived in China. We didn't ask anybody for permission. We just did it. And we put up a hashtag. And every car that drove by, we waved at. And the sheriff drove by and he smiled at us and just waved real happy. We did our little bit of research and decided we weren't going to lose anything by covering up an old sign. And people love it. And now my Paulding has their own hashtag. Throw wildflower bombs. You can plant native wildflowers on any unmaintained dirt areas downtown. I'm giving you permission. In Clark, South Dakota, an older man would just throw seeds over empty lots all around town, and everyone was thrilled to see the flowers grow. Now, this picture is from Henrietta, Texas, population 3,100, and they actually grow wildflower in their ditches. They're maybe a mile off the big highway, and they've lined the ditches along the way with wildflowers, and it just gets people to come into town. It's beautiful. Lots of towns have those chain link fences either downtown or along the major traffic routes, and it's a natural place to hang some art. Indianola, Iowa was renovating their courthouse square, tore it down, and there was this big hole in the middle of town. Well, the county made the best of a messy situation by decorating a construction fencing with colorful banners that promote their county. They opened it up to the community for people to submit or sponsor their own banners. So they will continue to add more banners to the display for the duration of the project. And this display is called Warren County Strong, to reflect the strength that their communities are showing during this tough time. This is a favorite of mine. I just think it's real cool. If you've got a staircase downtown, like the one on the right, why not paint a staircase mural? Just go to Instagram or Pinterest and search for staircase mural, and you'll get lots of ideas. Now, a lot of you have flower pots downtown, or you'd like to. Start by adopting them. Pull the weeds, plant something pretty, water them. Ginny Amy told us we have stealth gardeners in Southampton, Ontario, who come out and water potted plants that are sad, pull out weeds, and even sometimes spread mulch. They work in the early morning or late evening, so very few people ever see them. Lumbee, the town of Lumbee, plants herbs in pots on the utility poles downtown, and everyone is welcome to take some. So let people in groups and businesses sign up to be responsible for one pot. Then encourage them to plant lots of colorful plants, not just flowers either. What about some tomato plants or herbs for cooking or other garden items? Now, this picture is from a small town in Spain, and I think it's pretty neat. Tiny pots, easy to adopt, less work. Who doesn't need volunteers? And one of the officials from Simla encouraged me to have a caregiver's mindset. And I thought that was brilliant advice. Stop asking people to volunteer on committees and to be on them for a year or more. If you ask me to serve on committee, I just don't have the time. I don't have the time. But ask me to help out for a couple of hours and I'm right there. Also, reach out to different people than the STP. You know who they are, the same 10 people who do everything. Find some new folks to reach out to. A big tornado tore up Delmont, South Dakota. Even the trees were stripped. And a group of folks really wanted to keep hope alive, so they partnered with the shop class. And that class cut out cardinals, which are a sign of hope, and volunteers stepped up to paint them and put them in those naked trees. It was a small thing, really, but it spurred the community on, and they did eventually rebuild Delmont. That's a great use of volunteers in an easy way where everybody can participate. A lot of these ideas are about art and other things that don't seem important to economic development. If you don't have excitement, beauty, and a joyful atmosphere, any work you do to create economic development will be fruitless and wasted time. Start small, get people excited and involved, and make your town the place people talk about. People want to live in a place that is beautiful and happy, and downtown placemaking begins with making the place accessible, beautiful, involving, and pleasant for everyone. Long-term, it's attractive to visitors and outsiders too. But placemaking first makes a place the best for its residents by its residents. When people talk to each other, community happens. That strength of interested people talking to each other becomes even more powerful when people do projects together. They take ownership of the project and look forward to doing more. Community is being created. No matter the level of your involvement, you feel ownership for the project you worked on. So make room for everyone to participate by taking small steps. Try and test the ideas out. Enjoy the participation and the ownership of many, and creating your community then becomes economic development. I have a gift for you. First of all, thank you for being here today. And if you write this website down, SaveYour.Town /101 ways, it's 101 ways to start more tiny businesses, free to you. "45 minutes, Candace. Yay. Shall we go to questions? I'm going to stop the share. All right. First of all, let's go look in the chat room. Is there anything over there? Not yet. If you have a question and you don't want to ask it out loud, put it in the chat room. Otherwise, just talk away. How about you can? Oh, you know what, guys? I have one more thing to show you. I am so sorry. Hold on. I want to show you what you'll be missing that you don't want to miss. Here we go. So remember, I told you that we had lots of links. Here are the ones for your empty building ordinances, your rules and fines, and some news stories about it. Also, you'll find some about grants, water, crafternoons, childcare, and several about housing too. And Candace, if you do not have that, Candace will make sure you get it. So Amy Johnson wants a copy of the presentation. You see that, Candace? She'll write your name.
Yep.
Yep. And anyone else?
I have Amy.
Rebel Tech, tell me what that is. Oh, I think I know who you are, don't I? I believe I met you folks, right?
Amy works for KCRD, Kit Carson Rural Development in the town of Kit Carson, and Rebel Tech is their local internet service provider.
Yep. I did get to meet those folks. Toby, I think his name was. Yeah. Anyone else?
Yeah, hi Deb, Mark Denreader, Elbert County Economic Development. How you doing?
I'm good, Mark. How are you?
Very well, thanks. Just a question for you. As you toured through the 4 counties, it doesn't matter which county it was in, but did you see anything that just hit you and said, "Wow, this is a cool opportunity right here in this small town"?
Yes. The first thing that comes to mind is in Elizabeth, that empty lot that has picnic tables in it, right downtown. I can't wait to see what you guys are going to do with that. There is so much opportunity there, from more places to sit, to go outside, to maybe it's tiny villages like they did in Tynesta. That would be a good location for that. So I saw that as an opportunity. Kiowa, gosh, I wish we could figure out how to slow some of those trucks down that come through town. And for those of you from Kiowa, you know that they just barrel on through and pay no attention to the speed limit. However, there are people in Kiowa doing really great things, including a local historian. It was so much fun to walk around with this young man that told us stories of all the old buildings, including the one that Coors Beer used. So, that's something the historians can do, is create that kind of walking tour. I'm trying to think as I go through the towns. I went to Simla on a Sunday afternoon and saw there's a lot of empty buildings there, but I think with a little love and attention, they can be used or repaired. And there are some that they're in the process of repairing. Let me get over to Burlington. I would like to see more retail in downtown Burlington. There's a lot of service there, but I think there's room for retail somewhere in Burlington, more of it. And if you haven't been to their historical site, oh my goodness, you need to run over there and go see what they're doing. Stratton, they have that lovely winery, and I hear they're going to put pickleball in. So that'll be something fun. You could create a whole pickleball route. Kit Carson, what was the one right before Kit Carson? Oh, it's after Cheyenne Wells. Kit Carson is building a co-working space. If you haven't seen that, you need to contact them. So they have co-working in the middle and space for 2 offices on each side, and it's on that main road. And I believe they're getting a big truck stop from a small business trucking concern, not a great big truck stop. A good one for trucks, but not a big name brand one. Cheyenne Wells, take a lesson from the hardware store. They stay open till 6, but you know what? If you call him at 6:30 or 7, he'll be there. He'll get you what you need. And they're closed on Sundays, but he's there anyway. Feel free to give him a call. I'm working on him to stay open till 7. He already does. He just posts 6 o'clock. What towns have I missed, Mark? Help me out here.
Candace, maybe you can help me out on that, please.
Sure. We have Sadler.
Which one?
You have Sadler. Flagler, where they have the mural on the
Flagler.
elevator.
Yes, Flagler with the diner on the edge of town. And as you're driving
Yep.
down that main highway, there's a lesson for you too. There's this giant rock that has the words liquor on it and a pink Cadillac on top of it. That alone gets people to come off the highway. And if they could figure out a little better signage to direct people downtown, they'd get more people downtown too, because there's plenty of retail down there as well.
Mhm. Then you stopped in Seabert and had a visit in the town of Seabert, which was
Yep.
actually to the east of Flagler.
Yep, Seabird is a tiny little town and they have a wonderful group of people working to do something cool. Their grocery store there closed. However, the city owns it. And we had a conversation about opening a farmer's market there, starting with right away. There's a lot of people selling eggs right now. So why not go in and set up egg sales on Friday or Saturday? And then just keep adding in. You can add artists, you could add produce, you can add all different kinds of thing in a farmer's market. So they're looking at that. And some of the buildings have been bought in kind of hard shape, but they're working at creating plans to redo them and get some things off the ground. Cute little town. And if you can hear the dog, that's my Chihuahua. My apologies for Shirley.
Well, I think you've hit most of the towns there, Deb, that you toured, other than Bethune, when you toured with Sherry.
Oh, Bethune. How could I forget Bethune? Home of Denver Pile. And I recommended
Yeah.
to Sherry to take advantage of that little bit of information and figure out how to have a Denver Pile party. Wouldn't that be fun?
Mm.
The people that live there are
Mhm.
happy to live there. That was good to hear. And, you know, they're tiny. I think maybe 200 people. Thank you, Regine. Let's talk about Hugo. Hugo. That was a cute little town with a hospital that's going up and doing pretty well. And they're doing some neat things on the edge of town. Trying to think. Yeah. The former town council person is the assistant city manager in Lyman. So I got to visit with her for a little while. And we also spent some time in the office of the town clerk and had a good conversation and shared some ideas on some stuff that they could do there. Lyman has a lovely downtown, and their work is in getting people down there because they do have the highway with businesses on the edge of town that are fine, but creating some signage to get people downtown and to figure out what to do with that blue house that's just been on my mind right on the edge of town by the town hall. Now I think I got everybody. I sure hope so. If I did not, my apologies.
Hey, Deb, this is Troy. How are
Hi,
you?
Troy. How are you?
Good. After you looked at the whole region, did the whole COG region that you looked at for us remind you of any other particular area that is maybe good for us to be watching as an example of great ideas in a similar prairie economy?
Yes. The first thought that came to mind, first of all, I was pleasantly surprised by the prairie and the small towns, which in my mind creates a whole region that can be promoted to bring people there to visit, to take advantage of the things that you have to offer and stay, just like I did 5 nights. It's easy enough to be able to do that. I've spent some time in southeast Montana. Take Billings out of the picture and you have a whole bunch of small towns too. So if you pay attention to Red Lodge, which is a tourist mecca, look at Columbus, which they're doing wonderful things in that area. There are tiny towns that all have something in them worth visiting. And they're starting to work regionally and to do things together. They found, over the 2 years I've worked with them, they found one project that everybody's interested in, and it's the Bozeman Trail Project. It goes from Fort Phil in Wyoming up over to Bozeman, past Bozeman, Virginia City, I believe it is. But it goes through all 5 of their counties. And there's some real excitement coming around that. They're creating a map. They've involved students, they've involved natives, they've involved older people, younger. The group comes and goes and they work together every month and do something. So you could do that regionally too. How could you tie your 4 counties together to create a region that's just a whole lot of fun? Bring attention to yourselves. And you know, I'll be the first one to tell you, you can't share enough information about your communities. As you use marketing and social media, you have to say something 7 times before somebody sees it. So just remember that. It doesn't register until about the 6th or 7th time. Thank you, Troy. Candace, you know, if you hit those 3 dots, you can save the chat. Are you familiar with that?
I am, and I'm going to do that. And if anybody else wants to have the presentation that they didn't receive it or want to share it, my email's now in the chat, and feel free to reach out to me and I will send you the information, or Deb will too. But this has been most informative, I think. Can't say speak on everyone's behalf, but from what I've seen and heard tonight, what I took notes on, and just having Deb out to the region just last week. And sorry for the bad windy days, Deb, but I'm so glad you made it. You survived.
It prepared me. Yes, the recording link. Pam Cherry asked about the recording link. I was going to mention that. Candace will have it. So I'll put it up on my YouTube channel tomorrow or Saturday and send it to Candace. So if you want that, just shoot her an email or put your email address here and we'll make sure that you get it for those that want it. And my guess
will also be, sorry, to the municipalities, the towns, the counties, access to Deb's newsletter if you haven't got that already. So we'll be sharing that now. And gosh, I just really thank you, Deb. You were a real treasure to have out here on the plains. And I think I speak for at least the people who've called me or emailed me and said, wow, that was really great. So thank you for being here and for doing our little region. It was probably really long compared to some of the others, but
it was wonderful.
We're all glad you're here.
I like to see as much as I can of small towns. So thanks for inviting me and having me. And everybody, just have a good time with what you're doing. Oh, are there, now Pam's got another question. Are there barn quilt tours on the Eastern Plains as there are in Kansas? I don't know about by you guys. We have barn quilt tours in Iowa. So you can Google barn quilts Iowa and see what they have. What about barns, period? I'm trying to think if I saw, I don't remember seeing any barns, old barns that stood out. But Iowa does some stuff with old barns and rehabbing. And there's a HGTV special, not special, it's a show that's 2 seasons long about the fella that works with, you'll know who I'm talking about, the fella that works with the Magnolia people making all the tables. He has gone on the road and works with small towns mostly, rebuilding old barns and old buildings the way that they were originally built. Restoration something. That's worth looking up too. Pam, that is one reason I asked. Previously in Morgan County, but not a tour.
There's a barn quilt. Yeah, there's a barn quilt tour in Morgan County in the Northeast. We've looked at doing that, but Pam, right now we're working on a mural tour and adding murals all across the region. So be on the lookout for that. I personally am a big quilter, so I would love to have a barn quilt tour in the area.
So you guys talked about art on the prairie, bike on the prairie. I love what you've already started working within the 4 counties. So keep talking about that and promoting that and getting more people involved. The art was lovely to see in each community that had it.
Great.
Well, thank you everybody for your time this evening. I appreciate you coming out on a Thursday, on Monday, Thursday evening. It's been my pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Deb. Thanks everyone for joining. Be sure and email me or call if you have any questions.